than I expected, but I don't know what was happening with Facebook. Everybody, it was just so slow. Anyway, today I wanted to do a talk to you about engaging your TVAs correctly. So, engaging our TVAs is critical to our success of regaining a functional core. But often I get asked, how do I know if I'm engaging my TVAs correctly or if I'm using my external core? Alright, so if you don't know, I'm Katrina and I am a pregnancy and postpartum corrective exercise specialist, and I work with mums who have diastasis to help them regain a functional core, move without pain, stop peeing their pants, and just generally having more confidence in their body again. And today we are learning how to make sure we are engaging our TVAs or our transverse abdominis correctly. So I often have people in my large Facebook group, so that's the Diastasis Recti Workout Support Group, comment to me and say, I've been working on engaging my TVAs and I've been working for weeks, and instead of my belly getting smaller, it's getting larger and I'm getting more leakage. Like, what's happening? And when I watch a video of them, I often see that they are actually engaging incorrectly and in fact using their external core and bearing down, which is putting a lot of pressure on the pelvic floor, hence the reason they have some increase in leaking, but it also puts that pressure down into that lower abdomen area, causing more of a bulge in this area. And we don't want that. We're looking to regain function and flatten and firm our belly, not push it out further. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I want to give you a couple of lessons on how to make sure you are engaging correctly. First up, if you're ever unsure with things like this, the best thing you can do is go to a pelvic floor PT. Having somebody hands-on who can both do an internal check of your pelvic floor, but also monitor you when you're engaging your TVAs to make sure that they are what's working and not your external core is invaluable. In fact, every mum postpartum should go at that 6 weeks to be able to see a pelvic floor PT. It's really unfortunate that it is not recommended or automatically referred to. However, if you don't have a pelvic floor PT close by, I do also do online consults where I watch through a video and give you the correct cues if you're really unsure. So you're welcome to schedule one of those as well. But here are a few tips that you can use yourself to see if you're engaging correctly. So let's get down onto the ground. We'll do them lying down. And I'm going to just move the camera. So when we are on the ground and we are doing our engaging, we can find the pointy part of our hip bones and we can come in slightly. So I call this like the finger test. So we're going diagonally in from our hip bone. So if I do this standing upwards, hip bone is here, diagonally in. So this is where we're trying to feel. Now when we engage our TVAs, so we do a nice inhale and exhale. If you have your fingers here, on the inhale it's going to be nice and squishy. On the exhale, you're going to think about pulling up the pelvic floor a little bit and you'll feel it firm up under your fingertips. That firming up is your TVAs, your lower TVAs firing. So that's when they're engaging. If you keep exhaling and pulling up, you'll feel like a string type feeling pop out onto your fingertips. And don't be afraid to dig in and feel it, okay? When you feel that sort of band or string-like muscle pop out into your fingertips, those are your internal obliques. So we've gone from our very deep core of our TVAs to our internal obliques. And if you then keep blowing, then you'll start feeling the external obliques come in and the rectus abdominis come in. Now that's an indication that you've gone way too far. And one of the biggest issues I see with most people is they actually engage too much. It's a very small motion and you may not really feel it. So inhale, relax, exhale. That's all I need, okay? Because we just want that deep core to fire. Okay? We're not lifting no 50-pound toddler whilst we're lying on the ground. We're not even working against gravity. So our external core, our back, everything doesn't need to move. We just need that thinking of that pulling up and that firming up under our fingertips. Okay, so that's number one. We should feel it firm up. We may feel the internal obliques, but we shouldn't feel all of this grip in as well. Okay, we're not gripping to bring everything together. Because when we do that, that is when people tend to bear down. Because they tend to go, I'm going to bring everything together, and they go like this. And what tends to happen is your lower belly gets bigger, okay? So if you are watching, so step number 2 or tip number 2 is video or watch from the side, because your belly should flatten, especially this lower part of your belly should flatten, not get bigger. So can you see what happens if I bear down? See how this gets bigger here and rises. So I would like you to always video start side on and inhale, exhale, flattens, gets smaller. If it bears down or your TVAs give out and your external core takes over, it's going to go flatten and then bigger. If it goes flatter and then bigger, you've gone too far, and I want you to stop at the flattening part, okay? It may mean that your inhale and exhale is shallower than you've been doing. Okay, so that's tip number 2. And then we've got tip number 3 is to get the right cues. So there are many cues that you can use for engaging your pelvic floor. We can think of engaging or pulling up on our engaging our TVAs. We can think of pulling up on our pelvic floor. So when we do a pelvic floor lift or a Kegel, or stopping pee or gas or whatever you want to work for your cue for that, the first 30% of that movement is your pelvic floor muscles, then the next 50% is actually your lower TVAs pulling up. So that's why a lot of people use the cue of pulling up the pelvic floor, and that will also engage your TVAs. Some people can use the cue of closing the book, so that's like having that string between your hip bones and bringing them together. The problem I found with this cue is that tends to cause people to use their external and bear down, because they're really trying to close that the book and bring those hip bones together, and they end up bearing down with it. So it's not my favorite cue. Hissing like a snake also works. It's an automatic connection between that pelvic floor coming up with that long exhale. Now this only works if you've got a good inhale, and that means that your inhale can't be like this. We can't have it up in our chest, because then our pelvic floor hasn't dropped, and that can only come down. So a good inhale, and then like that. If you are somebody who really over grips and you're like, I really want to feel it, I'm like, trying to get them all to work, then you might want a more subtle cue. And the one that I like for a subtle cue is blowing out 100 candles. But I don't mean like a blowout like, but 100 candles that are really easy to blow out. You just need to get to each one of them. So this type of blowing. And that will automatically pull everything up as long as your pelvic floor dropped first. All right, let's have a look. I have a quick question and then we will move on. Oh, that's wonderful. I am very happy to do a live demo. Sometimes it really helps to see somebody else do it. All right, so what I want you to do now is I want you to give these 3 things a go. I want you to video yourself. Make sure you can see your whole of your back and the whole of your abdomen. So make sure you're in like a sports bra or something like that. I want you to video yourself from the side. And I want you to try using the finger test and whatever cue you're already using for your TVAs and see what happens. Does the lower belly flatten and then bulge again? If so, then your lower TVAs have given out and your external core has taken over. So did it bulge? Do you feel it firm up under your fingertips using that fingertip test? What about, do you feel the internal obliques pop? Work through that and then work through the different cues. So I want you to think about what happens if I hiss like a snake? What happens if I just pull up my pelvic floor? What happens if I'm blowing out candles? What happens if I'm thinking about closing the book? And I want you to watch them on the video and see what happens to the profile of your belly. Does any of them, if this is your belly, do they pull up like this and flatten your belly? Or does it pull up and then bulge down at your pant line? Does it do nothing and therefore you're not actually engaging it? Do you see yourself sinking in the middle and your mid TVAs taking over? Just take note of what's happening. And then if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask them here or in the diastasis workout support group, and I will help you through with this because it is so important to get this right, because you can't do core work or weights or cardio unless you can actually engage your TVAs correctly to be able to support your lower back. And yes, this will come back. It will be saved on my page here, so you'll be able to rewatch from the beginning. Now, so let's just take a quick recap of the 3 tests that we had. We had that finger test, so from the hip bone, coming diagonally in, feeling it firm up under your fingertips, and maybe the internal obliques popping out, but we don't want to go any further. You've got the look test so that you can see what's happening to the abdomen. Is it flattening and moving up, or is it flattening and then bulging? And you can also play around with the different cues that you can use to engage in your TVAs. All right, so next week I'm going to follow on with this progression because I know how important it is to feel like you're doing it right. So when I ask for people's big concern via email, a whole lot of them come back with the fear of not doing something correctly, so they're not doing anything. So next week, we're going to look at how much effort we should be using when engaging our TVAs, and should we always be engaging our TVAs, whether we're walking, whether we're running, whether we're doing weights. Like, when do we engage, when do we don't engage, how much effort should we put in with that? So that's what we're going to be talking about next week. So that will be on Thursday, hopefully at 12 p.m. Eastern, which is when I'm trying to do it. And before I go and sign off, I want to remind you guys about my Black Friday deal. So anybody who purchases before the end of day Sunday will receive my pelvic stretch and lower back sequence to really help with releasing the pelvic floor, relaxing and supporting our lower back. So if you have any lower back pain, this is super important, or if you have a tight pelvic floor. And any purchase will also go into a draw to win another program of your choice, or if you buy the total bundle, you go into a draw to win a month of sessions with me one-on-one. All right, have a fantastic rest of your day. And for those of you in the US, happy Thanksgiving. I hope you're spending a wonderful time with family and friends and loved ones.